What would you do if a routine drive home with your daughter turned into a nightmare when two corrupt deputies pulled you over in the dead of night? But they had no idea your husband was a former federal agent who would stop at nothing to expose the conspiracy that targeted your family for speaking out against powerful developers who thought they could silence anyone who stood in their way. If you love interesting stories like this that expose the truth, please give this video a thumbs up and tell us in the comments section where in the world you are watching this video. And also do well to smash that subscribe button. It was supposed to be just another quiet drive home. Jennifer Hillary and her 12-year-old daughter Keisha were heading back from piano lessons through the back roads of Cedar Falls, Michigan. The evening was peaceful until two corrupt deputies decided to make them their next victims. What these officers didn't know was that Jennifer's husband, Damon Hillary, was a former federal agent with skills they couldn't imagine. When the family's emergency call reached him, everything changed. This wasn't just going to be another case of police abuse swept under the rug. Jennifer Hillary had always loved these Tuesday evening drives with Keisha. After an hour of piano practice at the Cedar Falls Community Center, mother and daughter would take the scenic route home along Maple Ridge Road. It was their special time together, away from the chaos of everyday life. "Mom, do you think I'm getting better at piano?" Keisha asked, scrolling through her phone while her earbuds dangled around her neck. Jennifer smiled, glancing at her daughter in the rear-view mirror. "You're amazing, baby. Mrs. Patterson said you're her most improved student this year." The road was quiet that evening, flanked by tall oak trees and rolling farmland. Jennifer had driven this route hundreds of times. She knew every curve, every landmark. That's why she immediately noticed the headlights that had been following them for the past 5 miles. At first, she thought nothing of it. But as they passed the old Henderson farm, then the defunct gas station, then the abandoned Miller barn, those same bright headlights stayed glued to her bumper. Too close. Too persistent. "Mom, that truck's been behind us forever," Keisha said, finally noticing what had been troubling her mother. Jennifer's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "I see it, baby. Just stay buckled in." She gently tapped her brakes, a polite signal for the vehicle to back off. Instead, the headlights surged forward, getting even closer. Her heart began to race. When the red and blue lights finally flashed, Jennifer felt her stomach drop. She pulled over carefully onto the gravel shoulder, making sure to keep both hands visible on the steering wheel exactly as Damon had taught her. Two deputies emerged from the patrol vehicle. The first was Officer Blake Thompson, a heavy-set man with cold, calculating eyes and a permanent sneer. The second was Deputy Rick Coleman, younger but equally menacing as he positioned himself near the passenger side of Jennifer's car. "Evening, ma'am," Thompson said, his voice dripping with false politeness. "License and registration." Jennifer reached slowly for her purse, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. "Of course, officer. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" Thompson didn't answer immediately. Instead, his eyes drifted to Keisha, who sat frozen in the passenger seat. "Where are you two headed at this hour?" "Home from piano lessons at the community center," Jennifer replied, handing over her documents. "Is there a problem?" Thompson examined her license with theatrical suspicion. "Funny thing, your vehicle matches the description of one involved in a hit-and-run earlier tonight. Black sedan, minor injuries at the scene." Jennifer's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. We've been at the community center all evening. There are dozens of people who can vouch for us." "Maybe you were, maybe you weren't," Thompson said, pulling out a notepad. "I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle." "Excuse me?" Jennifer's voice remained calm, but her heart was pounding. "Officer, I'm cooperating fully. There's no reason for. I said step out of the vehicle. Thompson's mask of politeness dropped completely, his voice turning harsh and commanding. Keisha clutched her mother's arm from the back seat. Mom? It's okay, honey, Jennifer said, though every instinct screamed that it wasn't okay at all. What happened next would haunt Jennifer for months. Thompson grabbed her left arm roughly, spinning her around and forcing her against the car's hot hood. The metal burned against her cheek as cold steel handcuffs bit into her wrists. What are you doing? Jennifer gasped. This is unlawful. Detaining you for questioning, Thompson replied, pressing her harder against the car. Resisting will only make things worse. Meanwhile, Coleman had moved to Keisha's door, rapping on the window. Unlock the door, miss. She's a child. Jennifer protested. There's no need to. It's for her safety, Coleman interrupted, his expression blank and emotionless. As Coleman yanked a terrified Keisha from the car, Jennifer's panic reached a breaking point. But then she remembered the smartwatch on her wrist, the one Damon had insisted she wear with its emergency override feature. Moving her thumb carefully, she found the emergency button and pressed it twice. The watch vibrated once, confirming the call had been initiated. Thompson leaned in close, his breath sour with tobacco. No one's around to hear you scream. You people always think someone's coming to save you. Not tonight. But Jennifer closed her eyes and focused on one thought. Damon, please pick up. 20 miles away, Damon Hillary was reviewing case files in his home office when his phone buzzed with the emergency alert. Years of federal training kicked in instantly. Through the watch's open connection, he could hear Jennifer's terrified voice, Thompson's cruel threats, and Keisha's sobs. His blood ran cold, but his mind stayed razor-sharp. He grabbed his service weapon, emergency kit, and tactical gear, then raced to his vehicle. The GPS coordinates from Jennifer's watch led him toward the remote stretch of Maple Ridge Road. As he drove, Damon contacted his former partner, Marcus Rodriguez, who now ran a private security firm. I need backup and tech support. My family's been taken by corrupt cops. On my way, Marcus replied without hesitation. How long ago? 20 minutes. They're still on scene. Damon had dealt with corrupt law enforcement before during his federal service. He knew how these operations worked. They chose isolated locations, disabled communications, and relied on the fact that no one would witness their crimes. But Thompson and Coleman had made one critical mistake. They targeted the family of someone who knew how to fight back. By the time Damon arrived, the deputies had loaded Jennifer and Keisha into their patrol car. He could see his wife and daughter through the rear window, and the sight filled him with cold fury. Damon parked his SUV strategically, leaving the engine running and the door slightly ajar to suggest he might have broken down. Then he melted into the shadows, moving with the silent precision that had made him one of the Bureau's most effective agents. When Thompson approached the seemingly abandoned SUV with his weapon drawn, Damon was ready. He emerged from behind the vehicle like a ghost, moving so quickly that Thompson barely had time to register his presence. In a series of lightning-fast movements that Thompson's eyes couldn't even follow, Damon struck the deputy's wrist, sending his gun clattering across the asphalt. Before Thompson could react, a precise blow to his neck sent him crumpling to the ground, unconscious. Coleman froze, his hand hovering over his own weapon. He'd never seen anything like what had just happened to his partner. "Don't," Damon said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Coleman's hands shot up immediately. "Keys," Damon ordered, and the deputy fumbled to throw them over without argument. Damon freed his family, holding them both as they sobbed with relief. But even as he comforted them, His trained eyes were scanning the horizon. His instincts told him this wasn't over. "This isn't over," Damon told Jennifer as they held each other beside their car. "This was too organized, too deliberate. They were waiting for you." He was right. Within minutes, headlights appeared in the distance, 3 unmarked vehicles approaching fast. These weren't more police officers. They were private contractors, off-duty security personnel hired to clean up the mess Thompson had made. But Deputy Coleman, shaken by what he'd witnessed and finally understanding the gravity of what he'd been part of, made a choice that would change everything. He grabbed his radio and called for state police backup. "This is Deputy Coleman. I need state police assistance. Officer assault. Kidnapping attempt. Send units to Maple Ridge Road immediately." The approaching contractors realized they'd lost the element of surprise. By the time state police arrived, the would-be attackers had melted back into the night. But not before Damon had memorized their license plates and faces. The next morning, with help from retired Judge Patricia Wells and tech expert Sarah Kim, the Hillary family began to uncover the shocking scope of the conspiracy they'd stumbled into. Judge Wells, a woman in her 70s with steel-gray hair and an iron will, had spent decades fighting corruption in Michigan's legal system. When she saw the body camera footage that Sarah had managed to extract from the sheriff's department servers, her face hardened with determination. "This isn't just police brutality," she said, reviewing the evidence. "This is systematic targeting." Sarah, a former NSA analyst who now worked private investigations, had uncovered something even more disturbing. "Jennifer, do you remember the city council meeting 2 months ago? The one where you spoke against the Riverside Development Project?" Jennifer nodded slowly. "I oppose their plan to tear down the community center and build luxury condos." "But what does that have to—" She stopped, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "The developers flagged you as a problem resident," Sarah continued. "They've been paying Sheriff Blackwell and private contractors to harass families who oppose their projects. Your traffic stop wasn't random. It was a hit job." Judge Wells arranged a press conference that would expose the entire network. Standing before a crowd of reporters and community members on the steps of the Cedar Falls courthouse, she presented evidence that shocked everyone present. "I have in my possession undeniable proof of corruption, abuse of power, and criminal conspiracy," she announced, her voice carrying across the crowd. When the body camera footage played on the large screen behind her, showing Thompson's brutal treatment of Jennifer and his attempt to plant drugs in her car, gasps rippled through the crowd. The footage captured everything. His cruel taunts, Keisha's terrified screams, and most damning of all, Thompson's own words admitting they were acting outside the law. But Sheriff Robert Blackwell wasn't going down without a fight. As Judge Wells spoke, armed contractors surrounded the courthouse, attempting to intimidate the media and disperse the crowd. What Blackwell didn't count on was that the entire confrontation was being broadcast live to millions of viewers. When his contractors moved to arrest Judge Wells and seize the evidence, the public watched in real time as corruption tried to silence truth. Damon stepped forward, positioning himself between the contractors and his family. "You're on live television," he announced calmly. "Any action you take will be seen by the entire nation." The standoff lasted tense minutes, with contractors hesitating as they realized the world was watching. Then state police arrived in force, having been mobilized by the public outcry that was exploding across social media. Sheriff Blackwell tried to flee but was caught in the courthouse parking lot, his arrest captured by dozens of cameras and broadcast around the world. The investigation that followed revealed the true scope of the conspiracy. At least 6 other families had been targeted using similar tactics, all because they had opposed development projects or spoken out at city council meetings. The property developers behind the scheme faced federal racketeering charges. Thompson and Coleman were convicted of kidnapping, assault, and civil rights violations. Sheriff Blackwell received a 20-year sentence for conspiracy and corruption. But the Hillary family's victory went beyond individual justice. Their courage had exposed a systematic abuse of power that sparked reforms across Michigan and inspired similar investigations nationwide. Months later, as federal investigations continued and new laws were passed to prevent similar abuses, the Hillary family tried to return to normal life. But they knew they weren't the same people who'd driven home from piano lessons that Tuesday night. Jennifer became a sought-after speaker at community meetings, teaching families about their rights and how to stand up to corruption. Damon returned to federal service with a promotion to head a new task force investigating police corruption.